Good vibes, soul. I am Y311H. Straight out of Africa with my bunny friends, we say welcome to our channel, Happiness Headquarters, a place of love and good vibes. And today, together, my friend, we shall get to react together to extremely good vibes videos. All this, my friend, with the pure intentions of spreading honesty, peace, forgiveness, and unconditional love among all humans across the whole world. And now, my friend, before we dive in and get to look at the video, I'd like to read something from you here from the Book of Wisdom. Something of great value I'd like to share with you. Therefore, the promise comes by faith, so that it may be by grace, and may be guaranteed to all Abraham's offsprings, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham. He is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations. He is our father in the sight of God, in whom he believed, the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were. Oh, my friend, this one is from Romans 4:16 going down. God is great, my friend, at all times and full of love and good vibes. It's why we acknowledge Him, my friend, by giving thanks before we start all of our shows. And so, let's humble ourselves and do so. Thank you, King of Kings, Father, for your grace, for your love, for your faithfulness, dear Lord, and for the joy. All glory and honor belong unto you, dear Lord. Thank you for this wonderful day, Father, that you have helped us to see, dear Lord. All glory and honor belong unto you, Father. Help us, dear Lord, to spread love to the whole world through reacting together to these videos, Father. And as we do so, dear Lord, please intervene in all aspects of our lives, Father, and bring us more close to you. In Jesus' mighty name, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Let's dive in good vibes, soul. Much love.
In my high school ethics class, my teacher asked, if you could take a pill to erase your bad memories, would you? And this one student raised their hand and said, no, because every heartbreak, for example, you learn something from and become more resilient. And my teacher said, you haven't been in love, have you? When my ex broke up with me, I would sit in my chair for 6 hours every day and just stare at the wall, completely numb. And I'm still broken inside.
I don't know how to comprehend this, but astronomers just discovered the longest jets of plasma in the entire universe. And they're coming from a black hole. Basically, as things fall towards a supermassive black hole, it gets really hot, things are spinning and getting ripped apart, and most of that matter falls into the black hole, but some of it gets shot away in these giant jets. So this matter was never inside of the black hole. Nothing escaped a black hole. These jets are 23 million light years long, which is incomprehensibly huge. But here's the Milky Way for scale. It's as if you lined up 140 Milky Ways back to back. The black hole at the center of this host galaxy is shooting out these jets with the power of trillions of suns. They're so big that astronomers think they interacted with and had effects on the cosmic web itself. Like they're no longer at the scale of galaxies, they're on the scale of the cosmic web. This thing is 7.5 billion light years away, which means we're seeing it as it was 7.5 billion years ago, and I need to know what it looks like now. These jets were discovered using Europe's LOFAR telescope, which was scanning the sky, and they didn't just discover these jets, these were just the biggest. No, they discovered 10,000 of what they're calling mega structures in the universe. But that project only covered 15% of the sky, so there might be even bigger jets out there that we just haven't seen.
Hi, I'm the girl with the list. According to the internet, I'm 6 months pregnant, and this is reason 264 why I won't be having kids.
You may have heard the term mommy brain or pregnancy brain in the past, but now we have actual proof that something is changing in our brains during our pregnancies. One of the biggest findings of the study is that our brain volume decreases throughout pregnancy. You can see it's mapped here. This is the beginning of pregnancy down to birth, and there's a steady decrease.
In case you didn't catch that, brain volume decreasing is just a fancy way of saying your brain shrinks. Your brain gets smaller and does not return to normal. I went looking for more details, and this is what I found. Your hippocampus literally shrinks, and the hippocampus is responsible for things like memory and word recall. You know when moms are like, gosh, I got pregnant and now I can never remember where my keys are? And also that feeling when you're like, oh, what's that word? It's on the tip of my... You're gonna be experiencing that a lot more. Your prefrontal cortex also shrinks. This is the part of your brain that's in charge of planning and executive function. That's why moms might enter the kitchen and then forget why they went there in the first place. I'm 25. My prefrontal cortex has just finished developing. Like, it's just clicked into place. If I were to have a kid right now, all of that work goes down the drain. Interestingly, your brain doesn't just shrink. There's parts of your brain that actually grow. Your amygdala actually gets larger, and this is the emotional center of the brain. The emotional center of your brain helps you bond with your child and recognize its needs. So it's kind of the brain's way of getting rid of what it thinks it doesn't need in order to make room for functions that will help you be a better parent. But I'm not convinced. I don't have the brain cells to spare. Leave my brain alone. Take your birth control. See you tomorrow.
I thought I broke a rib, so I slapped an ultrasound on. Here are my 2 ribs. You want to look at the surface, that white surface, as I move the probe away from my sternum, looking for any discontinuities in the bone surface. I don't see any in those 2, and if I turn the probe 90 degrees, I can look at the whole surface of the rib, and I don't see any discontinuities as I also move it away from the sternum, meaning no broken rib, but possibly just some contusion leading to that chest pain.
King's mummy tomb discovery shocks the world. This is crazy. The King's mummy tomb. Oh my god. Are you seeing these good vibes, people? In the past, there were people buried when they were seated or what's up. This is crazy. Oh my god. Who discovered this thing? These people from the past had some behaviors that are quite creepy. Why would people bury someone when they are seated with clothes around their bodies? Or maybe that was meant to retain the body. I don't know. Let's see, some good vibes story here. Someone's father works in exploring such type of things. And today, my friend, we'll get to see what they came across in the mummy's tomb. This is crazy. What about if you get inside there and those things or those people now wake up? Oh my god, this is unbelievable. And clearly, you can't fit going in there. What if something happens? How will you get out? Oh my god. Can't imagine all this struggle of getting out when you are being chased by something. Whoa, man, this is unbelievable. Some guy was buried even with the sword, holding the sword. What? English people, do you know what could be the meaning of this? These ones were even buried with the jewelry and other stuff. My god, this is insane. Why would they do that? Or maybe also the dead need some good vibes jewelry. I don't know. What? And someone's father is not afraid to touch this body. Or this one is a prank. How? My friend, you watching? Can you touch alleged bodies like this? Oh, even go through their bodies and the stuff they are putting on. My god. I don't know how this works. These ones are dead bodies. And now someone's father is interfering with them, touching them, even removing some things from their pockets. Ooh, this is crazy. Now what if these guys decide to hunt you? You see? Anyway, this one is
In
good vibes.
2015, this CEO told all his employees that he was going to be raising everyone's salary to $70,000 per year. Dan Price was able to do this because he lowered his own salary from $1.1 million to $70,000 also. When he first announced this, a few so-called experts called Dan a socialist lunatic and an enemy to capitalism, saying his business would go bankrupt soon. Fast forward to the present day, Dan's company not only doubled their workforce, they have tripled their overall sales, but that's just success on the money side. Dan's Dan's employees are now able to buy their own homes in this crazy economy. Many of them have had kids since the salary increase because they can actually afford to do so. His employees are fiercely loyal to Dan and his company because they're getting paid really well. During COVID, when company sales slowed, employees voluntarily took a 60% pay cut to keep the company afloat, and it worked. And when business returned to pre-COVID numbers, Dan even repaid that pay cut back to his employees, which led to his people all chipping in and buying him a new Tesla to show their appreciation.
So did you guys hear about that man that died in the Grand Canyon because it was so hot in that day? And in lieu of this, Joe Biden also shut down the Grand Canyon. And there was a drone sent in there in order to find the man that was unalive. But the drone stumbled across artifacts of the ancient Egyptians. I'm talking about mummies, giants, and bones, all kinds of this thing.
Morning, another person from Texas died hiking the Grand Canyon over the weekend. The National Parks press release says a man from San Angelo died on a particularly hot day in the park.
The Grand Canyon is now closed by government authorities after a drone discovered something astonishing. Deep within its hidden caves, the drone captured footage of what appeared to be ancient Egyptian artifacts, giant mummies, and enormous bones.
Now you know things are going down if they're shutting down the Grand Canyon. That means we are near to something big. And now people are starting to wonder why 90% of the Grand Canyon is closed off to them. And now in synchronistic events, you have the ancient Egyptian filter going viral on TikTok, and you have all these beautiful melanated queens showing what they used to look like during the Egyptian time. See, 2024 is bringing out all the truth. Something is holy about the Grand Canyon because they don't want us near it at all. But to shut down the Grand Canyon because you found some artifacts, and these artifacts can have the potential to basically remind us of who and what we are, of course they wouldn't want that. Come on. But yes, y'all, things are intensifying. Let me know what you guys think about this video. This is strictly for entertainment purposes only. I am only raising awareness to interesting situation during these interesting times. Thank you for tuning to my frequency. Let's get this shift. Peace out.
Jesus tells us not to worry about what we'll eat or drink or wear. But aren't those things about basic survival? Do not worry about your life, he says. But that sounds irresponsible, if not ridiculous. So what does he mean? The word Jesus uses for worry is the Greek verb merimnao, which means to have concern for something. And sometimes concern is good, like having concern for a friend. But often our tendency to be concerned can get out of hand, choosing to focus on potential problems or dwelling on disasters that might happen. When we obsess over things that are beyond our control, like rain for our crops or what's going to happen tomorrow, a gnawing ache can develop in our gut. And that ache will not help us live longer, and it won't bring peace or security. It only steals the joy out of the life that we do have right now. Jesus wants to free us from that gnawing ache of worry by redirecting our attention to God's trustworthy character. Notice the birds, he says. They do work, and they build nests and gather seed, but it's God who provides everything. Or check out the lilies, how God has clothed them with stunning beauty. Jesus is drawing on biblical poems like Psalm 104, which describe how God holds the universe in a delicate balance and lavishly cares for his creation. And if God cares for birds and flowers, Jesus asks, how much more does he care for you? As a human, you're made in God's image and filled with his breath. Since God designed our world with plenty for everyone, we don't need to fret over having enough. And we don't need to hoard or violently defend our resources. We can live generously and give without fear. We can even become God's means of providing for others. If we're wrestling with the choice to stay worried about scarce resources or potential problems, Jesus invites us to take a deep breath and trust that in the end, God's provision is more than enough for everyone. And Jesus says there is a lot of evidence. Watch the birds, gaze at the lilies, and see God's generous care for his whole creation.
Noticed an incredible phenomenon. If you are in healthcare, you may have noticed this as well. Whenever I have my male patients and they come with their wife, every time I ask a question about their health, their background, what's going on, they will look at me, look at the wife, and the wife will always answer my question. No matter how direct I am, I may look directly in the eyes. 90%, this is like 95% of married men, right? You look into their eyes, you ask them the question. They may even tell you no. You know, you may even say, hey, have you had this surgery before? They might say no, but the wife says, no, you had it back in 2004 or 2006 or whatever. And I feel like, where would men be without their wives? It's kind of wild, because the wives be knowing like what they wore that day, what happened on the day.
Who are you performing for when no one is watching? If you don't have an audience, if you don't have a parent, if you don't have a friend, if you don't have a job, if you don't have a partner who you think is perceiving you, watching you, that you have to perform for, who are you performing for? If it's just you watching you, how would you be performing for yourself? What actions would you take? What paths would you follow? What behaviors would you incorporate into your life? These are important questions to ask yourself, because sometimes we operate from a place of performativity for others, forgetting that we are also watching ourselves. We are also audience members to our lives, and we have to ask ourselves, do we like the show we're putting on right now? And if that show is only meant to please others and not us, then what's the point?
Rule number 1, keep the operating room cool, but the patient warm. So we keep the operating room cool so we don't sweat when we're operating, but we need to keep the patient warm, because when they're under general anesthesia, that lowers your body temperature. So it's very important to keep the patient warm, and we use a bear hugger to do that. Number 2 would be to limit traffic in and out of the operating room, and that's for obvious reasons, mostly for infection reasons when people are coming in and out, but also it can be very distracting. So we try to keep the number of people in the operating room coming in and out at a minimum. Rule number 3 is to stay calm at all times. Obviously, sometimes things can come up unexpectedly during surgery, but you just need to stay calm and focused, and often my physician's assistant Jenny will help me through those times. And golden rule number 4, when it comes to music in the operating room, let the nurses pick it out.
I'm so sorry for scaring y'all in my last video about crazy eyes, aka dead eyes. But women, I tell you no jokes and I tell you no lies. When you see these men, it's because something is going on upstairs that's not too nice, or they're abusive, or both. When you see these eyes in women, how can I put this? They are normally seductresses. They can seduce a man easily. Men will find themselves just falling head over heels in love with them. They don't even know why. In Jamaica, we call them dreamy eyes. Men, when you see them in women, you love them. Women, when you see them in men, run. Are you familiar with something called pattern recognition? It's when you see a trait in a group of people over a period of time. So this is just my observation. Take it or leave it.
Do you ever meet someone's family and then you realise why they are the way they are? Like, my boyfriend is one of the most confident, sure of himself people. He loves himself. He's secure in our relationship. And then I met his family and I realised why. I was in the car with his mum yesterday, for example. Them two were in the front, I was in the back. And Matt puts a song on the radio. She goes, "Oh my God, Matt, this song is beautiful. You have such great taste in music." And Matt was like, "Yeah, I used to listen to this song in my AirPods when I was walking up mountains when me and Summer travelled Thailand." And his mum goes, "You are the coolest human. How did I create such a cool son?" And she's not being sarcastic. No wonder he's so confident. He's grown up with this kind of validation. I must have been silent for like 10 minutes. They were having some cheery like chit chat in the front. His mum goes, "Oh, Summer, what you doing back there?" And I say, "Oh, I was just watching a TikTok about a woman explaining how she used to be married to a child molester." Matt's mum responds, "This is what I love about Summer. Her mind is so intricate. I just love that she has these different sides to her and that she's confident to share them with us. It's beautiful." She will literally see every opportunity to notice something good about someone, compliment them. I'm often caught off guard by it. I'm like, "Oh, thank you." I just think we could all learn a little something from Matt's mum, especially the English.
Let's debunk some sad misinformation in less than 80 seconds. The most common trope is that World War III is just around the corner, even though people have been saying the same thing since the 1950s. In order for a world war to take place, you have to have an opponent that at least has a chance of beating you. Right now, the US is the only country that can project overwhelming power at any point on the planet. They generally do this with aircraft carriers. We have 11, we're making 3. China has 2 aircraft carriers. One is a casino, the other is a copy of the ship that was a casino, and they're trying to build one more, but they want to have 10 within within 10 years. Russia has one and it's been rotting in the dock since 2018. And Russia and China are not that chummy since Russia has just been subjected to a bunch of Chinese cyber attacks back in July. But what about the death of the dollar due to the new BRICS currency? India's foreign minister said there is no idea of a BRICS currency, and India is one of the major players in this group of nations. The dollar and the euro represent over 77% of the entirety of world trade, and non-US countries go for US dollar denominated debt 59% of the time. What about the quality of life never being this poor? Look at this chart of global life expectancy. And the world average on the Human Development Index from 1990 to right now. Hey, it's been rising, but saying that the world's doing okay isn't sensational and it doesn't sell. I am the Geo Husar and we're gonna be okay. Thanks for watching.
There's a new clinical trial that just came out, and it proves that yes, you can drastically reduce the amount of microplastics that you're ingesting just by doing one simple thing. Spoiler alert, it's something I talk about a lot. Microplastics are the physical pieces of plastic that will break off of something plastic, right? More and more, we are finding them everywhere in our body, right? It's not only the physical pieces of plastic that will do harm to our body, but those microplastics carry in tons of harmful chemicals. Plastic has over 4,000 different chemicals in it that we know to be harmful to human health. Quick reminder, microplastics are now definitively linked to many different types of cancer, including colon cancer. The main way that most people ingest microplastics is through their diet. Okay, so this was a diet intervention study. Okay, so it involved 15 healthy adult volunteers, and it was conducted over the course of 16 days. They then collected a stool sample every 4 days, and that was after one of the scenarios of either high plastic usage or low plastic usage. During the intervention, each participant completed detailed food records, sampling protocols, and questionnaires. So they had scenario 1, where the participants consumed their normal diet, and then in scenario 2, the participants agreed to consume a diet of food and beverages mainly not packaged in plastic, and they used plastic-free kitchen equipment. Last scenario, which was a high plastic use scenario, they consumed a lot of food and beverages that were packaged in plastic, and they used plastic utensils, and the researchers were really shocked. There was not a significant difference between the amount of microplastics in the low plastic scenario versus the high plastic scenario. Once the researchers started looking into the questionnaires as to what people normally ate, that is when they noticed huge differences. What made the difference between the people that had a lot of microplastics that they were eating and the people that did not have a lot of microplastics? What was it? Food processing. So even though there was definitely microplastics added from plastic food packaging and from plastic food storage, that didn't make as big of a difference as the amount of processing a food goes through, right? Ultra processed foods are foods that are heavily processed before you eat them. So this is things like breaded shrimp versus, fresh shrimp that you would cook yourself. Every time a food gets processed, it is on a different surface of plastic, right? The people that ate more processed food, that was a much bigger impact on the amount of plastic that they ended up eating. It was even more significant than whether or not they used plastic cooking utensils and plastic food packaging. You want to eat as fresh and unprocessed as you possibly can. All of the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that come along with that fresh food are actually going to combat the toxic impacts of microplastics. So don't trip too much about the plastic that your food is coming in. You should care more about how many plastic surfaces and how much processing your food went through before it even got packaged to begin with.
Black women are the only organisms on Earth that possess the mitochondrial DNA that has all of the variations possible for every single kind of different human being on this earth. The African, the albino, the European, the Middle Eastern. When the DNA of a black woman mutates, all other kinds of human beings come about. Go ahead and research this topic. It's called the Eve gene, and it's only found in black women. Sorry, but black women are actually the manifestation of God.
When you die, does your debt die with you? No, is the short answer. Your debts, when you die, still need to be paid. However, your children, or whoever is going to inherit, aren't responsible for your debts. So whatever you own when you die does need to be used to pay your debts, right? But if there isn't enough money to pay those debts, they won't be inherited by your children or anybody else. They will go away. After 1 year from date of death, no creditors can come back later and seek to be paid. Now, there's a couple exceptions to that. The IRS, the Franchise Tax Board, the government can still come past 1 year, but anyone else, if money is owed to them, cannot come back after 1 year.
The following video is from a woman who was out doing her normal exercise routine and recording herself. It wasn't until afterwards that she started reviewing her footage that she realized something completely horrifying. Something was behind her, watching her. Watch the woods behind her as she's exercising and you'll see it. But the question remains is, what was it? Take a look at this footage and tell me what you think.
I'll tell you this zebra story. This tells you everything you need to know about human beings. So it's worth knowing. Okay, so zebras have stripes, and people say, well, that's for camouflage. And then you think about that for 2 seconds, and you think that's a really stupid theory, because lions are camouflaged, and they're like golden, like the grass. And zebras are black and white, so you can see a zebra 5 miles away. It's like, there's a zebra, it's black and white. So the whole camouflage thing, that's just not working out so well as a hypothesis. Okay, so biologists go and they decide to take a look at some zebras. And so they're looking at a zebra on the herd, because there's no zebra, right? Just like there's no fish. There are schools of fish and there are herds of zebras. There's not a zebra, there's zebras. And so you're looking at the zebras, trying to study a zebra, and you look at the zebra and you make some notes and you look up and you think, oh Christ, which zebra was I looking at? And the answer to that is you don't know, because the camouflage is against the herd and the black and white stripes. It's very difficult to parse out a zebra against the herd. You look down, you look up, it's like, uh-oh, all those damn zebras look the same. Yes, the camouflage is effective, but it's against the herd. All right, so then you think, well, we better identify a zebra so we can see what he's up to. So then you take your Jeep and a can of red paint and a stick with a rag on the end of it, and you drive up to the zebras and you paint their haunch red a little bit, put a nice red dot on their haunch, or maybe clip their ear with a cattle clip. And then you stand back and you think, hey, I'm pretty smart, now I'm going to watch that zebra. So what do you think happens to the zebra? The lions kill it, because lions, they're smart, right? Hunting animals are smart. But they have to identify a zebra before they can organize their hunt. They can't just hunt the whole herd. They have to pick out a zebra. And so maybe it's like a zebra that's got a sore hip or something. And so you think, well, nature's kind, it just takes the weak. No, zebra or lions like really healthy, delicious zebras, but they look like all the other healthy, delicious zebras, so they can't get a bead on them. But if they're small and just born, or if they're limping, or there's something that identifies them, then the lions can pick them out. And then they do pick them out. And so the rule for human beings is keep your damn stripes on so the lions don't get you. People camouflage themselves against the herd, and they like to be in the middle of the herd, which is what fish do, by the way. If you have a big school of fish, the smart, healthy, large fish are in the middle of the school. Because you know what you call fish on the outside of the school? Bait.
I just solved the double slit experiment, and it's going to piss everyone off.
This will not go well.
As you know from the double slit experiment, matter, or in this case light, acts differently based on whether you're observing it or not observing it.
So that's actually a fairly accurate layperson explanation, but it's a bit misleading if you leave out the critical detail that this doesn't require a person to be observing it. Just that something microscopic, like a camera or a detector of some sort, measures it.
Meaning that if I'm not looking at it, matter acts as a wave, but when I do look at it, it acts as a particle.
Setting aside the misconception that this requires a conscious observer rather than just a microscopic measurement, I want to nitpick just a bit. It's a quantum wave the whole time. It's just that when you measure it, the wave becomes more localized, so it can't self-interfere and produce the diffraction pattern.
But Dr. Mike, that would infer that the electrons or photons are conscious in making a decision to change their state based on whether or not we're looking at them.
It wouldn't imply that at all. It implies that measuring quantum systems changes their behavior. As an analogy, imagine you're blind. Maybe the only way to measure something is to touch it. But if you try to touch a puddle of water, you'll cause waves in the water. So was the water consciously reacting to your touch? No, it just behaves that way because you're interacting with it. The same thing is happening in the double slit experiment.
And this is what happened on the cross.
Holy pivot, Batman.
When the Father, who is the observer of this experiment, turned his face from Christ, it changed Christ from righteousness into sin.
That's a cute analogy, but nothing more.
Dr. Mike, this is crazy, but where is this in Scripture?
I don't care.
2 Corinthians 5:21, the one who knew no sin became sin that we might become the righteousness of God. Or the one who was a particle became a wave so that we could become a particle.
Again, cute analogy, has nothing to do with physics though.
Now we are the light that passes through the slit. The eye of the needle is a slit, 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 slit.
Yeah, so those are all single slits. The double slit effect doesn't work with a single slit. Although, interestingly, it does work with more than 2 slits.
And the crazy thing about the double slit experiment is it's outside of time.
It's not, though. For context, he's referring to the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. And the scientific consensus is that there only appears to be retrocausality if you try to explain the behavior of the system classically. But these are explicitly quantum systems, so obviously you'll come to the wrong conclusion if you do that. Essentially, the mistaken reasoning here is assuming that after the photon passes through one of the slits, it's either in the wave configuration or the particle configuration. The problem is, it doesn't behave like a classical wave or a particle, ever. It's a quantum wave, which can be in superposition. When the photon, or whatever, passes through the double slit, it's always in a superposition of states. When you measure it afterwards, you're just collapsing or projecting that state to one of the slit eigenstates. It doesn't affect the past, it just changes how it is going forward. Depending on your preferred quantum interpretation, either the wave function collapses or the detector becomes correlated with the quantum states. Either way, no retrocausality, no time travel.
I think this might be a better example of the double slit. 1, 2. Interference pattern of the waves through this shape will be 3-dimensional.
Not really. By the way, just to save you the work, we know what the diffraction pattern looks like going through a cross. It's this. In fact, we can do math to figure out the diffraction pattern for a hole of any shape. And by the way, this phenomenon is not even quantum. Young's original double slit experiment just demonstrated that light behaves like a wave. We do this in classical electromagnetism classes all the time.
And this is why science is so desperate to disprove this. Check out Neil deGrasse Tyson trying to make this all go away.
It's a shame you didn't actually listen to him, because he actually offers a pretty good lay explanation of what's happening. Just because it doesn't agree with your worldview doesn't make it wrong. The key here is that we have strong evidence that consciousness is not required for this effect to happen, just a macroscopic system interacting with the quantum system. Tyson was just explaining that. But your head was too deep in the sand to consider you could be wrong.
Nice try, Neil. Let's debunk that. First off, this condescending style, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
This is wildly ironic. Have you heard yourself? I mean, I know that I can be condescending to people who are willfully ignorant, like you. But I suspect you don't have the same degree of self-awareness.
This condescending style of authoritative speech is called academic intimidation. How do I know that? I'm a doctor. I have an MD and an MBA.
Having an MD and an MBA does not make you an academic or an authority on academia. According to the US Department of Education, the Doctor of Philosophy represents the highest academic qualification in the US education system. But that's not you. You're just equivocating on the word doctor to imply that you're on the same playing field as Tyson or myself. To be clear, you're not. But more to the point, I would trust you, or someone like you, to give me appropriate medical care. You have expertise in that field. On the other hand, Tyson, and I for that matter, have expertise in this field. Why on earth should anyone listen to you over a subject matter expert about the double slit? It'd be like me trying to say, ignore Mike and take my advice about your heart health. It's absurd.
A double slit experiment has been conducted with electrons, photons, and all other types of particles. Some massless, like photons, and some with mass, like electrons. And the results are always the same. And it's been conducted in dark rooms and light rooms with various different types of measurement sensors. The results are always the same.
That's all true, but it's irrelevant to the point Tyson was making. Tyson was just saying that in order to observe something, meaning to measure it, you must interact with that thing. And fundamentally, that means changing it. Whether that's bumping into it with a light wave, affecting its trajectory with a magnetic field, or the dozen of other ways we measure quantum systems. In all of these cases, the measurement disturbs the system. This is a failure of your understanding, not a failure of Tyson's explanation.
Neil is lying and he knows it. He's just expecting you not to figure out that he knows it.
Tyson is simplifying. On the other hand, either you're maliciously lying or you're simply ignorant about the physics. That said, ignorance seems more likely because, you're not a physicist. Of course you're going to be wrong about quantum mechanics.